So, you sent us that research article,
Yeah.
the one called Complex Social Ecologies and the
Yeah.
Development of Academic Motivation.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And, well, it really got us thinking. It's like, what makes a student want to learn? That motivation, it's got to be way more than just what's going on in their head.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really struck us too.
Like, there's a whole world of influences shaping that.
Right. Totally. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. It's like going beyond the usual suspects, those individual factors we always hear about with student motivation.
Right, right. Like, those ideas are important, but
They're just one piece of the puzzle.
yeah, and this article, it gives us this much bigger, more interconnected system to think about.
Exactly. And it's all built around this idea of, get this, complex, dynamic, multi-level social ecologies.
Yeah, mouthful. Right.
It is, but it's
Oh,
powerful stuff.
it really is. And the article's argument, it's basically saying that when we just zero in on like one or two things that drive motivation, we totally miss how all these different elements work together.
And that's what we're going to unpack for you today. This whole idea of overlapping ecologies, the article suggests that by really understanding that, we can come up with a way more complete, more practical understanding of what really gets students fired up about learning.
Okay, so where do we even start with all this?
Well, I think the best place to start is at that most immediate level, where the learning's actually happening.
Okay, so the classroom?
Exactly, what the article calls microsystems. Now, on the surface, you might think, okay, a classroom, pretty simple, right?
Yeah, I mean, desks, chairs, a whiteboard, what's so complex?
Oh, that's just it. This article dives deeper and it says, hold on, there's a lot more going on in that classroom than meets the eye. Oh, yeah. It's a constant flow of interactions. And get this, the article highlights this need for like really specific, detailed ways to identify which features in these microsystems are actually the ones that make a difference for motivation.
So it's not just about being in a classroom, it's about the specific stuff happening within it.
Right. They don't give us like a numbered list, but the message is clear. We've got to dig deep into all the little things happening in that space. Even the subtle stuff can have a huge impact, and that's something you might miss if you're just focusing on, say, the curriculum or the textbook.
So we need a magnifying glass, basically.
Exactly, and one of the biggest things under that magnifying glass, one of the most important elements in these classroom microsystems, is relationships.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, how a student connects with their teacher, their classmates, that's going to have a massive influence on how motivated they are.
It's absolutely fundamental. The article makes it clear these environmental factors, teacher-student dynamics, peer-to-peer interactions, those are like the bedrock for how a student's motivation develops. Think about it. A teacher who's supportive, who encourages you, that can build up a student's sense of belonging, their confidence in their ability to learn.
Yeah, I can see that.
But on the flip side, negative interactions, whether with the teacher or classmates, that can create a lot of anxiety, erode their self-belief.
So it's not just who's in the classroom, but how they're relating to each other.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond that, too. It's not just about the people. It's about what's actually happening in that space.
Like the actual teaching, the lessons.
Yeah, what the article calls pedagogical practices. Things like how are the lessons structured, what teaching methods are used, what kind of feedback are students getting. Things like project-based learning, group work, those can have a huge impact.
Right, so it's about creating that environment where students feel engaged.
Exactly. Are students given opportunities to be independent, to really take ownership of their learning? Is the feedback they're getting clear, specific, and helpful? Is there a focus on growth mindset, on the idea that they can improve with effort? All these elements within that classroom microsystem can either be huge motivators or massive roadblocks.
So it sounds like if we're looking at any learning environment, whether we're part of it or just trying to understand it, we've got to really zoom in on all those different pieces.
Absolutely. Look at the teacher's approach, the relationships between students, the overall vibe of the space.
Okay, so we've got this complex little world of the classroom. But this article, it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't. It takes us to the next level. Mesosystems.
Okay, and what are mesosystems?
Well, think of it like this. We've been talking about the classroom, right? All those intricate interactions happening within those four walls.
Right.
But students' lives, they don't just exist in that one space. They've got their homes, their families, their friends, their hobbies.
So mesosystems are about how those different worlds connect.
Exactly. The article uses this phrase, students' multiple worlds, and it's all about how those worlds are organized, how they interact, and how that impacts their motivation.
So, for example, what's happening at home could influence what's happening at school.
Precisely. And the article digs into how these connections, whether they're supportive and aligned or kind of clashing and disconnected, can make a huge difference. If a student's getting encouragement and reinforcement for learning at home, that can really boost their motivation at school.
Yeah, it's like that support from home is amplifying what's happening in the classroom.
Exactly. But on the other hand, if there's conflict, if they're getting negative messages about school from their family, well, that can really undermine everything.
And the article, it actually pulls in some other research here, right?
Yeah, it mentions a lot of the work that's been done on parental involvement, like how involved are parents in their child's education? Are they engaged? Do they value learning? That has a big impact on the mesosystem.
Right, so a parent who's actively involved, who's encouraging their child, that can really reinforce those positive messages the student's getting at school.
Exactly. But if the parent's not involved, or even worse, if they're sending negative messages about school, well, that can create a real disconnect, and that can seriously impact the student's motivation.
So the big takeaway here is that we can't just look at school in isolation.
Right. We've got to consider how all those different parts of a student's life, their family, their friends, their extracurricular activities, even part-time jobs, all of that's interacting and influencing how they feel about learning.
And these mesosystem connections, they can either be these powerful forces pushing them forward or these major obstacles holding them back.
It's all about alignment, right? When everything's working together, when there's consistency, that's when you see that real motivational boost.
Okay, so we've gone from the classroom to these interconnected worlds, but the article, it takes us even further, right?
Yeah, it does. It zooms out to the biggest picture.
Yeah, it's macro stuff.
Systems. And what are macro systems? Well, think of it as the really big stuff. The overarching cultural values, the structures of society, even the economic and political landscape. These are the forces that shape the environments where students live and learn.
So we're talking about things like socioeconomic status, cultural background.
Exactly. And the article, it describes these forces as interlocking systems of risk and resources. What it's really saying is that society isn't this level playing field.
Right. Some students have a lot more support, more opportunities, while others face way more challenges.
Absolutely. And that's what leads to what the article calls stratified and unequal niches that can either support or undermine motivation.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that some students, just by virtue of their background, their circumstances, they end up in environments that constantly nurture their motivation, that give them the resources and support they need.
But others, they're facing constant barriers.
Exactly. Things like poverty, lack of access to quality education, even prejudice and discrimination. These are all macro-level factors that can have a huge impact on a student's motivation.
So it's not just about what's happening in the classroom or even in the student's home life.
Right. It's about those larger societal forces that are at play.
And the article, it gives some really specific examples of how these macro systems influence motivation, right?
Oh, yeah. It talks about things like cultural relevance in the curriculum. Like, does the curriculum reflect the experiences and backgrounds of all students? It also talks about the prevalence of stereotypes and biases. These aren't just little individual hurdles, they're often baked into the system.
So we've got these microsystems, mesosystems, and macrosystems. It's like layers of an onion, right?
Exactly, and the article makes a really important point. This whole framework, it's not just about categorizing things, it's about seeing how everything fits together.
Okay, so how does it help us understand motivation better?
Well, think about all those individual factors that other motivation theories focus on. Things like a student's self-efficacy, their belief in themselves, their goals. This framework helps us see how those factors are actually influenced by these different layers of their social environment.
So it's not just about what's going on inside the student's head.
Right. It's about how their context, their environment, is shaping those internal factors. And the article suggests that this wider perspective might even lead to discovering new factors that influence motivation and understanding how they all interact.
So to sum it all up, what we've learned today from complex social ecologies and the development of academic motivation is that a student's motivation to learn, it's not just some internal drive.
Right. It's this intricate web woven from all these different levels of their social world, from those daily interactions in the classroom to the connections between their home and school life, all the way up to these huge societal forces that shape their opportunities.
It's like this article saying, hey, if you want to understand motivation, you can't just look at the individual.
Exactly. You got to zoom out, see the whole picture, understand those complex social ecologies.
So for you, our listener, as you think about the learning experiences you're interested in, maybe your own or maybe someone else's, I want you to think about that immediate learning environment.
That microsystem.
Yeah, what are the relationships like? What are the teaching practices? What's the overall vibe? And then zoom out a bit.
To the mesosystem.
Right. How are the different parts of that person's life, their family, their friends, how are those interacting and influencing their motivation? Are they all pushing in the same direction, or are they creating conflict?
And don't forget to zoom out even further.
To the macro systems.
Exactly.
Yep.
What are those larger societal forces at play? Things like socioeconomic status, cultural background, those can have a huge impact that we might not even realize.
It's like this article gives us this new lens to see motivation through. It's challenging us to think bigger, to look beyond those individual factors and really grapple with the complexity of it all. And by doing that, maybe, just maybe, we can find new and better ways to support students and help them thrive.
I think that's a great place to leave it, really getting people thinking about these different layers and how they all come together.
Yeah, food for thought for sure. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.